Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to another episode of On the Couch. I'm in the UK, so I say good morning, but good afternoon or good evening if you're anywhere else in the world. I'm Melanie Perry.
And I'm Julie Hyde-Mew.
And together we are Creatives, a network for professionals within the creative industries everywhere. We support you and help you learn, grow, connect, and develop your creative business together. But we're on the couch. Julie, who is our guest today?
Well, on the couch today is VICKI Lovegrove. She is a creative coach based in Staffordshire in the UK. She's worked in the creative industries for over 30 years, starting off as a graphic designer. Her design clients range from small businesses to global brands, and she has guest lectured in universities as far afield as Delhi in India. She is a member of the Chartered Society of Designers and a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts. And she successfully works from her home, her design and coaching business, around her family, husband, 2 children, and Rocky, the studio dog. So let's bring her in, Melanie.
Hi, how are you?
That was quite an introduction. So kick us off with telling us about how you started as a graphic designer.
Oh, a very long time ago. I started off, I was entered into a competition at school to design a logo for a local organisation, and I won that. And that just got me interested in it. And I did all my work experience at school in advertising agencies and design agencies, and I used to spend my summer holidays going back to them. So I'd often spend a summer doing paste up in an agency somewhere around the Milton Keynes area.
So you've always had that love for design, and you've always had an eye for what looks good, and that was your passion.
Yeah, I think what really set it off early doors was magazines. I loved magazines. I mean, in the 80s, they were like the doorway to everything, weren't they, magazines? So I really wanted to work in that industry, and I did do some experience in that. But it was things like adverts in magazines, and they're just brilliant. Back then, they were so clever.
Yeah.
And that's definitely what got me interested in the whole subject.
Yeah, I mean, that was the advertising in sort of 80s, especially sort of late 80s, early 90s, was just fabulous, wasn't it? And I think we've lost a bit. I don't know, I mean, you can give me the perspective as a designer, but I think we've lost a bit of that magic.
There's just
a lot of it's quite bland these days.
Yeah, there's just so much more channels and noise, isn't there? So there's probably lots of brilliant stuff out there, but you are probably less likely to see it.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Yeah,
it's tough, isn't it? Standing out these days on there, just everything, everywhere. So
besides adverts, what else did you design?
Well, back then I was not doing the actual adverts. I was doing the paste up because there was no computers, so it was a case of letter setting all the lettering out and photographing it on a camera, and proper old school layout, which is quite hard to describe for people who've never experienced it, because it's literally cutting out and pasting down and using like a ruler to make everything level, and so it was really laborious stuff. But I was surrounded by really inspiring people who were working on much more bigger, exciting things. So that sort of inspired me to move on. And then I went to college and did my graphic design qualifications. And from there, I've worked in lots of different places. Yeah.
When did you decide to make the move from being an employee in an agency to going self-employed? Because it is quite a big leap. I mean, a lot of people think that being self-employed is really easy and, you get all this time and you can do what you want. And it's not, the reality is not like that, is it, Vicky?
No, it's not. And I was made redundant. So I had my hand forced, and I had been asked a year or so before that by somebody, would I like to start up an agency? And I just didn't have the confidence. I couldn't imagine how you would go about getting the work. You know, when you get too far ahead in your head and you think, oh, I don't know how to do that, so I'm not going to do it. But then I was made redundant, and I decided to freelance in at other design agencies and just get a feel for it. And before long, clients from my previous job had found me. I hadn't told them, but they found me. I think I'd put up a really basic website to advertise myself. So unusual surname, easily found back then. So they found me, and I soon had a steady flurry of work and working in other agencies as well, doing basic graphics work just to pay the bills.
So it basically grew and organically, really.
Yes, it did. And within a couple of years, I could drop the freelance stuff in other people's businesses and just work with my own clients. And that's how I've been ever since. I don't chase work within other agencies. I just like dealing directly with the person whose business it is. So I've been really lucky, actually. Not many designers can do that.
No, and you were lucky, because, as I say, this is kind of starting off in the days before social media. You say you had a website and people kind of found you, and there are probably people out there now thinking, oh, I wish it was that easy for me. I've been plastering myself all over social media and people still can't find me.
No, I literally learned HTML and coded one page and put it on the internet. You know, it was so basic, and there just wasn't a lot of competition then. I mean, it was 2003. Wow. So that seems quite close to where we are now, but so much has changed since then. You know, every man and their dog is doing it.
Yes, in terms of tech too. I mean, you're saying you started literally cutting out, like the original cut and paste, when you did have to sort of cut and paste on a board to do your layouts and stuff, and now it's just point and click, which is quite so much easier. But I mean, kids today probably would be aghast at thinking, oh my god, I'd have to get out the scissors.
I know, it is crazy working with a scalpel and spray mount and
spray mount. Well, you probably wouldn't be allowed to these days, health and safety, because you'd be like, on the seat, that smell, there's got a smell, hasn't it, that spray mount?
I quite like it.
I do, actually.
I used to have a spray booth, which we've got so thick and sticky with all the glue, and then you'd remember, oh yeah, that's why I've got to wear a mask, because that's what it's doing to my insides. It was awful stuff. But born in the 70s, I'm probably 50%
we were made of sterner stuff then.
But as you say, the last 20 years especially, so many creative industries have been impacted by technology, and even if you're a writer, 25 years ago you were typing on a typewriter, and then it was what do they call them, word processors, and then the computers came, and it was all very exciting. So you actually grew up professionally in the computer age.
I remember being at college and there was only half a dozen computers, and you had to book them out, and then they were so basic. You had a floppy disk, and if you couldn't fit your work on a floppy disk, you couldn't do it, because there was no CDs and DVDs. It was just, everything was so basic. But then in a way, that was a good time to be learning, because it's all about the concept then, not about what the tools can do for you, because the tools were quite rudimentary. So going back to the advertising, that was great. That got me into design. Things like the silk cut ads. And it was always cigarette ads, actually, that I loved. I didn't smoke. But they were just so clever, because they weren't allowed to show the product.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know.
And it's the ones that you remember as well, isn't it? Good advertising is the ads that you remember. And I mean, for me in video or TV, you know, there are so many TV ads from that era, you know, the 80s, early 90s. You know, I can still remember the jingles of
Yes.
you know, certain things are really, really evocative. You know, if anyone says, you know, packet mashed potato, you know, you instantly conjure up the mash gets smashed ad. You know, you've got the Milky Bar Kid, the Shake and Vac Hoover, you know, so many sort of they were like king of the strap line. You know, they had these really powerful strap lines that have endured that are well, I'm saying 20 years old, they're 30 years old now, you know, but they're still really strong in your head. And certain things you could, like Gillette, the best a man can get, you know, that was genius. Why they ever scrapped it, I don't know, because whenever I think of Gillette shaving cream for, I do think of men. I know that the Gillette do women's razors and things as well, but I always think Gillette, the best a man can get. That's just lodged in my head, and it will be with me till I die. You know, you know, mark of good advertising. And I can hear the music, and I can hear that jingle. And now I've said it, I bet there's a few people watching this who are singing it in their head. Gillette, the best a man can get.
And no, we won't get it out of our heads for the rest of the day. Thank you very much.
But I just
it's,
say that.
It's bizarre though, isn't it, what you remember? Because I last year I remember buying my kids a finger of fudge just so I could sing them.
Yeah.
The adverts. They were like, oh no, not again.
One. Yeah.
So do you think we've lost, or the ad industry in particular has lost that kind of effervescence that we had 20, 30 years ago, or do you think it's become more sophisticated?
I don't think so. I think the ad industry, and I'm going to upset people saying this probably, they take themselves a little bit too seriously, and they probably always have. But it's very much about, what do your peers think? And, you know, I think there is a little bit lost on what the customer actually thinks, you know, and the potential customer. But I don't get involved in that side of that world. You know, my client base isn't B2C, it's all B2B. So when it comes to my design client base, so I appreciate it, because I think it's a real skill, advertising, and I still love it. And I subscribe to Campaign because I just love reading about it.
Yeah. I do as well. I'm quite geeky when it comes to ads, but it's very seldom that an ad that I'll see either, you know, online or on the television these days, it will stop me in my tracks, and that I'll say, whoa, that was really good. You know, there is a lot of bland out there, and I don't think some of the ads that we're seeing today for product, and again, maybe it's a good thing, because you know, some of these adverts they're in my head, okay, the products might not exist anymore, but I don't think there is an ad around today that I will still have in my head 20 years down the line, you know, whether that product exists or not. They do pop up.
I mean, the latest one for McDonald's is, I just can't get that jingle out of my head.
Yeah, and that is really clever, that advert.
Very clever.
Isn't it? Really clever, and that will hang around for years.
Yeah,
you can tell, but they've always been clever, even in their print advertising. Their print advertising is beautiful, McDonald's.
Some of the bigger
they don't even show the product.
No.
No. That's when you know you've made it, isn't it? When you don't have to show your product, but you've got something that, as you say, the strong imagery, the strong jingle, the strong suggestion that is just, it's in your head, and that's it. It's there forever. Forever. So, I mean, I could talk about advertising all day, but that'd be really boring for everybody else. So we'll move it along. So, through your career and your love of design and your love of creativity, you have kind of morphed through now into more of the coaching space, predominantly to help creative people. And do tell us more about that, because again, creatives are a certain breed and they do need a lot of help with certain issues. I know. So tell us how you kind of went on that journey.
Well, I had a client phone me up one day, and I'd struggled to pin her down on a job, and we got the job done anyway. And then one day she phoned me up and explained why she'd been so hard to pin down, and she'd had a terrible thing happen in the family, which I can't talk about, and she just offloaded it on me. And afterwards I thought, oh, okay, what do I do with that now? You know, I listened, because what we're great at doing within design is listening, and any creative role, because you're there to solve a brief, so you listen. So I listened, I took it all in, and then I didn't know what to do with it. And a couple of months later, I was sitting next to a chap, and he said he was a coach, and I told him, he was a psychologist as well, and I told him what had happened, and he said, well, have you considered why people find it so easy to talk to you? And we had a bit of a chat around that, and then off the back of that conversation, he became my mentor, and then I moved into coaching. And it's been a really interesting journey, because I can see the benefit of coaching for creative people. It's still yet early doors for coaching within that industry. And a lot of people can't see the point of it. And I think the confusion comes when people think I'll get some mentoring. Mentoring is not the same as coaching. So it's good. You know, it's great if you can have a great mentor. I've got a great mentor, but I've also got a coach.
Yeah.
And, it's really good.
So
but
what
it's not the
exactly do you
same.
do? What do you coach them in?
Coaching helps you change your mindset. So you know what it's like being creative. You're like, oh, that's shiny and new. Oh, I'll follow that down the road and get distracted. Or you get a thought and you get stuck in this loop of a thought. And because we have such great imaginations, we can over imagine every scenario and, you know, potentially catastrophize something, but it's because we're really great at imagining, and you can get stuck. But everybody is like this. But what I see within the creative industries is people really do get stuck, and with a bit of help, that's easily changed. You know, it's and I experienced it myself and thought, God, you know, people really need this. I'd like to learn how to do it and deliver it to other creative people.
Yeah, it's a good point about like overthinking, because as a creative, I overthink every possible scenario that could possibly happen in the history of the world ever. for a long time, just to make sure I've exhausted every avenue. And then but like you say, it keeps you stuck in that zone. You don't move on from it, or it's difficult to move out of the thinking about it to actually getting over it and getting on with your life. And I imagine that you must do some mindset work about things like imposter syndrome and other things that creatives suffer from, and kind of like self-value almost, because a lot of conversations I have with creatives is not pricing their goods and services at the correct level, because they feel like people don't take creatives as seriously as they do scientists or people in a technical space or people in, you know, in that kind of space. But we're just as valid.
Yeah. I mean, I think the issue for a lot of the creative industries is ultimately it's really easy and inexpensive for somebody to pick up the tools and have a go in the creative industry. And because of that, they can perceive the value to be much less of what a creative person does. But the value doesn't come from using the tools. It comes from the years of experience that you've developed and the way you problem solve and everything. But as you go through your creative career, particularly if you've got a commercial aspect to it, I mean, graphic design is terrible for this, you're constantly being criticised. So, I mean, it's criticised to get to the end result that the customer wants. So, but it's not always delivered by people who understand how creative people work. So it can come across as quite personal. The chipping away can start to become bullying and can feel like bullying. You know, just because somebody feels like they've been bullied doesn't mean, just because you didn't intend to bully them, doesn't discount how they felt. You know, and if you've worked for a company for years and they do that, then it can seem impossible to move yourself out of that role, because you're clearly crap. That's what's going around in your head. Well, I'm obviously rubbish. That's why I'm always being told this. You believe it, because you're giving something of yourself all the time. Every time you have to come up with a creative idea, a bit of you has gone with that creative idea. You know, they call it giving birth to ideas for a reason. It's part of you, isn't it? And it's part of your experience of life. And to have it criticised constantly, and that's where it's a problem. You know, most people can take the odd bit of critique to help them move on with the idea, and it become a better idea. You know, if you work in groups, it's often a better idea at the end of it. But if it's a constant criticism and it's not constructive, it feels personal. And that's where coaching can really help creative people, because as a business, you may not treat your staff badly. You may have brilliant perks and you treat them really, really well. But if they're verbally criticised constantly, they're not going to feel that. And it's about what the person feels ultimately. And that's where you get stuck in the loop. You know, you'll go home and you'll feel demotivated. And because you're feeling a bit rubbish, you might not work on any personal projects, and your creativity gets limited to work, and you're being told you're rubbish. And that's what can happen.
Yeah, it's a killer, isn't it? And again, in the creative space, especially if you're working for others, there is a lot of ego around, and the people at the top don't necessarily want the people at the bottom to catch up too quickly, because obviously they'll feel threatened by it, which is a whole nother, they could do with some coaching in that particular issue. But if you are constantly feeling like you're under attack, and the thing with art and creativity and design, it's very subjective.
Yeah,
it is very subjective. You know, what one person's piece of art and design, somebody's going to think is, oh, that's absolutely, that concept, that design is wonderful. Somebody else is going to go, nah, don't like it. Doesn't make either one right or wrong.
no.
But if you are stuck in an environment where you're constantly being undermined, it can have awful consequences.
Yeah, and departments that you work with, they've obviously got to hit financial targets. It's all about the money ultimately. But where those departments will get their joy from hitting those targets and making some profit, the design departments get their joy from being recognised as being creative. And it's so much smaller, but it's huge.
Yeah.
Because that sort of, you'll start to see it in the business, because those people might be off sick of that lot, you know, and that's a first sign.
Yeah,
because there's no joy in going to work.
But what if you're a freelancer? Because you're talking more about people, creative people, feeling as though they're not valued in a, say, corporate environment. But what if you are a freelancer, and then you are facing things like self-motivation, procrastination, self-sabotage? Do you also coach against those kind of negative feelings?
Yeah, I'm coaching some people at the moment who've had successful freelance businesses, but they're not feeling it anymore. They're feeling demotivated and again stuck. And it's that often people get to a point where they're ready for change and ready for more. And if it's hard to notice that for yourself, but if you're coaching them, you can see that and you can help push them because they're ready for it. And that's where that loop, being stuck in a loop, it's because it has become monotonous and your brain is looking for more, but it doesn't know what the more is. Your unconscious mind always needs to know where you're heading, and you can change that. It doesn't have to be the same thing for the whole of your life, but it needs to know that you want to get somewhere, because then it's got some focus, somewhere to focus. If you have no focus in where you're going in your business, you don't progress, you just stagnate.
Yeah, if you want more, but you don't know what the more is. And that's the beauty of having a coach, is that you are trained to ask the key questions that actually unlock Pandora's box almost. Oh, yeah. And think about it in a different way, because sometimes when you're stuck in that loop, you're too close into it. And it needs someone external to actually ask you the right questions to unlock the door that you can kind of get out of your own way, and also coaches, are quite good at tough love sometimes as well, because we all do. And I've had some good coaches in my time that have given me a bit of a talking to, which is good, because sometimes you can get very stuck in standing in your own way and make excuses, because again, your subconscious mind, thinking it's keeping you safe, is coming up with all these things of, well, you shouldn't do this because you might get hurt, you shouldn't do that, but we're not in the, if you do this you're going to die kind of thing anymore, are we? We're not, if we change direction, it's not going to kill us. And when you really hone in on actually you really haven't got an excuse to do something, it's like, yeah, okay, you're right.
Is that a fear of success? Is a fear of success a very real thing?
I'd say it's a fear of failure. But the best things happen when we fail. If you're painting or something and you drop your brush and it goes all the way down, that happens to me. That can sometimes create something you think, oh, actually, I'll keep that in. So it is the fear of failure that holds people back. And there will be a voice in your head saying to you, you don't want to do that, because you might fail at that. You have to stop and listen. Who is the voice? Because by unlocking who the voice is, it's often not you. By unlocking who the voice is, then you can address where the root cause of a lot of your problems come from. And that's a really simple thing to do. There's the things that hold us back now are things that have been there for years and probably since childhood, but you keep pushing it down. Think, oh no, I can push it down. And the more you push things down, it takes a lot of energy to push things down. And that energy could be, once it's freed up, makes you so much more creative.
So you mentioned earlier about the difference between a mentor and a coach, and just for everybody watching, just explain the difference. What is the difference between a mentor and a coach, and why ideally you need both? Because you do, mentors and coaches, every successful person on this planet will tell you they've got a good mentor and they've got a good coach. So just explain for us the difference between the two and why they're so important.
So mentor is often somebody within the industry that you're in, not always, but often, who has experienced what you're going through and can share their knowledge.
Yeah.
A coach will listen to you. They won't often exchange their knowledge with you, because that's not relevant unless you ask for it, of course. But what they do have is a lot of tools they can use to help shift your thinking. So you could be doing something with a mentor and they will explain what they did, and you can think, well, that's great, well, I can't do that. And you just keep going round, well, I can't do that happened because of what they did. And so they're giving you the ideas and it's brilliant, and it initially spurs you on, but then you constantly put yourself down. Well, the mentor probably can't help you with that, but a coach would. But the mentor will sit alongside you when you're ready to do it and you're in the right mindset and help you get there as well. You know, it's
So
just somebody to talk to, isn't it?
Yeah, mentoring is more about relationship building, isn't it? And having some support there to help you through. Whereas a coach is more, I would say, is the how to.
Yeah.
You know, the mentor is like, yeah, you know, when I was in your shoes, this is what we did and this is what you could do. But they don't really give you the step-by-step of how to get there. Whereas the coaches will force you into, not that, and coaches won't give you the answer.
No.
Good coaches will make you come up with the answer yourself, which is where the learning comes in. So a coach will actually give you the toolbox and help you get your strategy, like you say, shift your mindset into, yes, I can do this, and these are the steps I've got to take to get there. And then for the support along the way, the relationship, you know, the mentor helps along that journey, which is why I think the two go really, really hand in hand. And you know, we covered a lot for creatives, you know, imposter syndrome, battling, you know, dealing with an ego, whether it's an egotistical boss or an egotistical client. You know, we've had a lot of creatives get sucked into sort of energy vampire clients that just nothing is good enough, and you've got to change this and you've got to do that, and you feel so depleted at the end of the day, and then you end up not thinking, oh, why am I doing this? I'm not enjoying it anymore, and your creativity, say, gets squashed and squashed and squashed. It's about how a coach can help you out of that situation, help you realize why you're attracting these sorts of people and what to do about not attracting them in the future. You know,
and it's about looking at yourself holistically as a creative whole. You know, you may have a creative title in your job, but that doesn't define you. That's what you do at work. What else do you do in your life that's creative? Because it's the other side of your life that keeps you buoyant and maintains your mental health when work is hard. You know, I mean, some of the most successful people, creative people, they really doubt themselves. They've got a long way to fall, and that's another thing. The better you get at something, you can see where you've been, and you've got further to fall. So that brings in extra fear. But if you approach your whole life creatively, I think it takes the fear out of that, because you can be braver in your personal work if your business work doesn't require it, or, you know, or the other way around. You know, you can just relax into your creativity at home and be braver at work. You know, it's what your life needs at the time.
So how do people contact you, Vicky, as a graphic designer and as a creative coach?
I'm on LinkedIn. Very easy to find on LinkedIn. I'm primarily on there. And if they go to my website, which is vickylovegrove.co.uk, that's my coaching website, and you can find my design stuff through there as well.
All the details going across your screens right now. Brilliant. So, Vicky, what would your top tips be for people in the creative space wanting to, if you're a graphic designer, if you're working for a company and you're thinking about going out on their own, what would your top tips be for anybody who's been thinking about taking that plunge but is sort of teetering on the edge and not quite ready? What would your top 3 tips be?
Build a network, primarily. Your business, should you decide to go into business, freelance, it's nothing without a network. So build a network and be brave, because you won't be earning your full wage probably before you can make that jump. But follow your gut. Your gut will tell you if that's the right thing to do or not. I don't ever ignore your gut feeling. So have a network, get freelance work on the side, have a side project, and that feels the safest way. But if you get made redundant, like I did, just go for it. There's nothing to lose. There really isn't. And what I love the freelance balance, because it gives you time, and that's what a lot of jobs don't give you.
Yeah, absolutely. And get a coach.
Oh yeah, and get a coach.
And what about somebody who feels that they can draw very well and they have an eye for, montages and things like that? What would be your top tip for somebody very young who is thinking about getting into graphic design as a career?
I would say don't worry about monetizing what you're doing. Just be concerned about your craft. And, if you want to know more, so many people are happy to mentor. I mentor as well as coach, and reach out to people you admire. People love to help other people who are coming through the ranks and learning something new. I mean, people love helping. So always ask for help. Always ask for help. And don't get confused with being inspired by other people and being overwhelmed with how good other people are. Because even if you're looking on social media and you see lots and lots of brilliant creative people, you're only seeing the highlights of their brilliance. You don't know what goes on in their heads. They're probably all sitting at home going, oh, nobody likes me, I'm rubbish, I haven't got any likes. Everybody has their own issues. Just be concerned with yourself. Be really selfish in your creativity when you start off, and do it for you. That's my main thing.
Yeah. And what would your top tip be? Because I'm just thinking about, we touched on it, with the advent of all the social media, not social media, tools and stuff. And I know that there are designers who are concerned about Canva and things like that. There are lots of applications out there where people say, oh, I don't need this, I can do it myself. If somebody was thinking, well, I really love design, I'd love to be a professional designer, but why should I? Because no one's going to hire me because everyone's doing it themselves on Canva. What would you say to anybody who's thinking like that?
It's just a tool. It's just a tool. If you're any good at design, people will want to work with you. It's about the concept behind what you do. Layout isn't design. A lot of graphic designers do a lot of layout. It isn't design, and that's what Canva is. It's a layout tool. It's not much more than that. And even AI, look at it, explore it, because it will be a tool for the future, and the people who learn how to use it will be best armed. But if all of this disappeared tomorrow, could you come up with a concept for what you do? And if you can't, then you're not a designer.
Yeah, I think that's really important. That is to say, there's layout tools, and there's a difference between concept and getting it down. It's like if you can creatively come up with the concept, and that's what you need. If suddenly all the computers got switched off tomorrow, could you still create that thing? Would you be able to find a way? I think that's really important.
Yeah, creativity is about problem solving. It's not about using tools. A pencil is a tool, and it's the most basic tool, and it's the one that gets you started. How you deliver your creative problem, like solution, that's not down to the tool.
Yeah, excellent point. On that note, we are at my second favourite bit of the show. The bit that we're going to end the last 5 minutes is the values jam game. And everyone who's ever watched,
where Melanie digs a little bit deeper into your psyche, Vicky.
Oh God, I hope my brain works then.
You don't have to think too hard about it. It's kind of like the first answers that come into your head. But we all know that people love to work with people that they know, like, and trust, and whose values align to their own. So these cards were created as a business tool to help nurture and foster discussions around values. So I'm going to give the cards a quick shuffle, and then I will ask you to pick a card. Pick a card, any card. And then we'll ask you about creatively we'll ask you about that value. So just shout stop when you want me to stop. Stop.
Yeah, go on then. Yeah.
All right.
Just say whatever comes first into your head, Vicky. It's even if it doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Right, this is the on the couch bit of on the couch. We're going to dig into your mind. Right, okay, we have got excellence. Okay, excellence. So, Vicky, what does excellence mean to you? What does it look, feel, and sound like?
Oh, excellence. It's a bit pink.
Yeah.
There you go. So that's what came to my mind straight away. Colour. So it's a bit pink, and it's warm, and it's comfortable, and it's happy.
Lovely. What does it sound like?
It sort of fizzes.
Fizzes. I love that. It's like pink champagne, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I like that. I like that.
Well, then
Brilliant.
that answers the next question. What does it taste like? It tastes like pink champagne.
Which we had this the other day, didn't we? Was it Isaac? And I made a mistake, and I asked him what his smelt like. And I was like, no, that's wrong. But if you want to go for it, what does excellence smell like?
It would smell like sort of pomelo.
Brilliant. I like it. I like it. I love this bit of the show. We get some really fantastic stuff coming out, don't we, Julie? I really, really like it. I really like it. Now you can see why I love my cards. They're just brilliant. So on that note, we have run out of time. So I would just like to say, Vicky, a huge thank you to you for coming on the couch. And Julie, a huge thank you to you for joining as well. And until next time, we'll see you.